Yeah.
All
Now,
right.
do you prefer James or Jim?
Jim.
Jim. Okay.
Jim. Okay.
Okay.
Or as my students used to say, Mr. B.
Yeah. Right. Right. You were a headmaster. Is that?
I was, yes. I was headmaster of school in upstate New York outside of Bennington, Vermont, for 5 years, called the Hoosac School. It was an Episcopal school, all boys, and then it went co-ed around, it was from 1976 to 1981.
Ah.
Yeah, then I did,
Bennington. We New Hampshire folks take a great deal of pride in the Bennington area because
yeah,
John Stark was the commander at the Battle of Bennington.
right. Well, the Bennington statue is still there, along with the panther.
And I'll tell you an interesting story that you may not have ever heard that gives you a cross cultural view of this. I am Abenaki and Iroquois.
Oh, you are?
My right, my grandfather,
Okay.
um, and uh, and John Stark was captured by the Abenaki. Um, uh, well before the Battle of Bennington, of course.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And at that time, he was second in command of Rogers Rangers.
Okay.
He was captured and he was brought up to the St. Francis area by the Abenaki, and made to run the gauntlet. And,
Oh
and
dear. Yeah. Yeah.
he fought back as he went through. And the chief was so impressed because not only did he fight back, but he threatened every single brave that he was going to sleep with their woman.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, that'll do it.
And the chief got such a kick out of it,
Yeah,
he adopted Stark and
yeah,
lived with them for almost 2 years.
okay.
And so when it came time later on, and Rogers Rangers were commanded to go up and wipe out the Abenaki,
Mhm.
Stark refused to participate.
Good for him. Now tell me about, was it Molly Stark Trail, Route 2 over the Berkshires? Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So what's Molly Stark? Do you know?
I think Molly was his wife.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, she was pretty brave, pretty famous in her time as well.
Okay.
And many years later, I believe it was in the 60s, um, the uh, the state of New Hampshire's Division of Historic Resources was doing a dig in the area of the Stark homestead because they
Mm-hmm.
were putting a bridge in the location. And what they found was that there was a long-standing village who had lived on a section of the land supposedly owned by
Okay.
John Stark. So he had a very close connection to people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's a great area. It really is. I showed up in, when did I show up? 1976. The school that has been there since the late 1800s, um, and was founded by an Episcopal priest way back in the 1880s. And small boys' school, and just over the line in New York, but right next to Bennington. So I know the area pretty well. And I used to pull trailers across the Molly Stark Trail, Route 2, all the way to New Hampshire. Boy, I'll tell you, that's a trip, especially in the wintertime. So yeah, then I did. Well, I've been to 9 different schools,
Is that
uh,
right?
and started out in Pennsylvania in the Mercersburg Academy, 1964, not knowing what I was going to do with my life, and I ended up in Raleigh, North Carolina, and retired in 2009 at an all-girls school, St. Mary's School in Raleigh, North Carolina. Where I retired finally after, well, they keep calling me back, but that's another whole story in terms of what I did professionally.
Well, let me take a moment to introduce you. I have the great pleasure of speaking with Jim Beckford, who I hope was going to give us a little bit of historic overview of the family's history with Mowgli as well to begin this podcast, because
Right.
you, Jim, began to get involved with Mowgli at that very tenuous time when Colonel Elwell was sort of phasing out his leadership of
Mhm.
the camp,
Right,
and there was Darwin Kingsley and John
right.
Adams, and eventually Bill Hart. So you were kind of a witness to history, even though you were fairly young at the
I
time.
didn't know it at the time, but yes, yes, I was.
So maybe you'd give us a little bit of sort of familial background, and
Sure,
then
sure.
how you came into the
Yeah.
picture.
Um, well, let's see. I went to a private school in Southborough, Massachusetts called the Fay School. Darwin Kingsley was a tennis instructor there. And my mother announced to me one day in May of 1953, when I was just going to be 11, that she had signed me up for this boys' camp in New Hampshire. Knew nothing about it. And I said, oh, well, I guess that's okay. Anyway, Darwin had, I think, if not like recently, bought the camp from Colonel Elwell. And so up I go. After getting the woolen uniforms, remember the woolen uniforms? W.H. Brine was the company in Boston that sent us a big, huge catalog trunk full of all these uniforms that my mother had to stitch my name tags into. Anyway, up we go. And not knowing anything about it, it took us forever to get there because there's no interstates or anything like that in those days. Pouring rain the first day. And I think you probably know the entrance in the Gray Brothers where the driveway goes all the way around and then comes down. Well, that was a sea of water. The whole area was a sea of water. It was coming down like crazy. So I get out, and there's Darwin Kingsley standing on the porch of Gray Brothers. The first time, not that I knew who he was, obviously, he was at my school. He greets us and all that, and he says, well, you need to go into Gray Brothers. They're having a pillow fight. Okay. So I disappear, and it's completely black in there. You can't see a hand in front of your face. Although screaming kids, right? That was my introduction, my first 15 minutes of Mowgli. I come out about half an hour later, my parents are gone. They disappeared back home. Well, that first year was interesting, to say the least. It
So
was,
you were the first
I
of
was
the
first Beckfrd, yes, right. Um, and so I was there from 53 to 56, the den of 56. Um, it was just after, in hindsight, it was just after the war. Most of the practices that Mowgli is famous for, but may not be there today, I don't know, were still in effect for those years. And then later in the 1960s, 61, 62, and 63, I was back again as a counselor. So, not knowing where you want me to go with this, but for example, some of the things that I suspect are not there anymore, but certainly were there in my first year, second year, third year, and as a counselor. Um, Everywhere from, the mines. Did you have the mines when you were there?
Oh,
You had
sure.
to go, you had to go every morning, had to shuffle down to the mines, which were these toilets down just south of Tumai. And you had to go and report to a counselor who had a big chart of your name, where he would ask you how many times you'd pooped the day before. And of course, we all lied, right? Because if you didn't poop, you ended up at the infirmary to explain to the nurse why you hadn't pooped. I should add here, as we all know, that the Camp Star is a Christian Science camp, and they really believe that. I mean, you had a tough time getting a Band-Aid. You went up to the infirmary, which, by the way, had a bee's nest in it. There was one of these bees thing had glasses and everything, and the little tube with the breeze went out the side of the what. I don't think that was there anymore, but in those days it was fascinating. You saw all these bees and everything. Anyway, it's a Christian Science thing, and boy, they really into what you ate, how you ate it, how much you ate, all that kind of stuff. And I kind of think that's was a pretty good idea. Anyway, so that was the mines. Then they had showers once a week. And at 6 o'clock, some guy woke up the entire dormitory, and we shuffled up there in bathrobes naked up to well, it was in the bottom side of the infirmary, whose name I can't remember now. I think there's a name for
The lodge.
the lodge. Yes, thank you. Where we had a cold shower, and we had a strip in there one at a time. And the counselor pushed us into this little tiny shower thing, cold lake water, and they gave you a bar of soap, and you soaped up, and then rinsed you off, and out you went. Next, well, next it turned out to be down at the Red Cross house, where we stood in line again, just in our bathrobes. Whereupon they weighed you naked. They looked at your teeth. They looked at your fingernails. They looked in very body cavities, including between your toes, and decided whether your toenails needed to get cut. And then they decided if your hair was too long, and there was a barber sitting there, and they gave you a buzz cut if they decided that it was too long. At which point you disappeared back into your dormitory after being deloused practically. And I don't think any kid's going to stand for that anymore. That was once a week. We did that once a week.
Once a week. I was about that. Yeah.
Is they still doing that when you were there?
Yes, yeah, indeed. Every Saturday, you waited for your dorm to be called up to the Red Cross house.
Right, right, right. Well, looking back on it, their whole theme of cleanliness basically is what they're talking about. Natural cleanliness was pretty prominent. I have no problems with that.
Yeah.
Yes, it was old fashioned. For example, it got really hot, as you know, in those woolen uniforms we had. We didn't have gabardines or all that stuff. T-shirts was really woolen. And if you got really hot, they allowed you to take your shirt off, so everybody ran out, bare chested. But in order to solve the problem, they thought was to give you salt pills, and the salt pills was like big horse pills, and they had some out at breakfast. At which point you took the salt pill, and they didn't give any water or anything like that. You didn't carry bottles of water around with you, but there was a bubbler on Colonel Elwell's porch, right at the edge of it. Which reminds me that we actually had a live bugler, a kid who could blow the bugle, and that's where the bugle came from, not by a record.
That they still do.
They do?
Yes.
That's good. I do know that when I was a counselor, it was a record. They couldn't find anybody to blow the bugle, I guess. And right above it was this World War I air raid siren. I don't know if that's still there either.
I think it's still around.
Really? Anyway, once the summer we had to have a fire drill. God knows what you're supposed to do in a fire drill, but they'd crank that baby up, it was really loud, but it was old as hell. So yeah, that was those kinds of things. Oh well, again, they don't do this anymore. They had what was called hydraulics. And hydraulics was this place behind each dormitory where you urinated in anytime you wanted to. It was a big yellow light, and you stood around. Of course, the big deal was to see if you could get your stream to hit the feet of the guy standing next to you. And then the next morning, the maintenance guy would come by with a big pail of lime, throw it in there, and light it. He had some sort of gasoline thing going too, and he'd light it, burn it all out, and start all over again. I'm sure the state of New Hampshire probably didn't think too highly of that. So, but that's what we did. And if you were embarrassed when you were 12 years old boy, that was too damn bad. Yeah. I did have one kid when I was a counselor, and a couple of years later, that was embarrassed by going to the bathroom with somebody right next to him. He used to go in his shoes at night. I finally found him. Anyway, those kinds of things in 1953. I don't know if they're expected. That's what you did. And looking at old photographs that used to be in the basement of Gray Brothers. I don't know if they're still there anymore, but they used to be old 1912, 1913 kind of posters, and photographs, all brown and everything. All look exactly the same as when I was to do exactly the same thing. In hindsight, that was a good deal, I think.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's funny. I think the only thing that you could say has changed dramatically about anything that you've explained is that the showers are warm.
Yeah, they're warm. Well, I was up there a couple of years back, and yeah, different showers are been remodeled. How's that?
Right. Well, I hear Pasquani still uses cold showers.
Oh, really?
That's it.
Well, the Bill's character, I was told. And then, of course, I was fat in those days, and I was kind of pudgy. And so I lost about 20 pounds, going up and down that hill to get something to eat. There was no such thing. You went from the waterfront to the jungle house real quick. And after 8 weeks of that, because that's how long the summer was in those days, it was 8 weeks, you were in pretty good shape. And so in that sense, it was terrific. So from a healthy point of view, from all that, I cannot complain. I would hope that when I was up there a few years back, the one thing they don't do the buzz cuts anymore in terms of haircuts. Everybody's running around with pretty long hair.
No, but you probably knew both my mom and my dad because my mom was the nurse in 1963.
Oh, really? Yeah, I would. Yeah.
And Roberta King, and my father Roger King was the barber.
Okay. Really? Okay, I probably did. Not that by that point I was a counselor, so I'm not too sure I had the same situation on a Saturday morning. but it certainly was the Christian Science part of it, having to do with the health and the exercise and the cleanliness, those kinds of things are very prevalent in those days. In terms of, they didn't really want any back talk in terms of my hair. I didn't want my hair cut, that kind of stuff. They just did it, much like I suspect the Army did. Colonel Elwell was, as you know, kind of militarily oriented. He really liked the parade ground, as he called it. And he liked the taps, and he liked the various ceremonies that were going to that point. And I have no problems with that. We had to get there. We had our elbow true in the right space in between one kid and another. Had to form our lines and all that stuff. And on the whole, it turned out, in hindsight, I thought it was a pretty good deal. Right down to stripping your beds. We had to strip our beds every morning.
Yeah.
I don't know if they do that anymore either, but
anyway. They still do. Yeah.
And he had to write down the sheets, fold them up, and all that kind of stuff, and the blanket at the bottom and all that. Well, my mother thought this was very bad. I went home one year, that's like 1954, 55. Parents decided to go off to Martha's Vineyard for a vacation, which we did. Unfortunately, it was a hurricane in 1954, shut out all the transportation to Martha's Vineyard, took out the dock. So my father, very upset, finally figured out how to get a private plane, and must have paid a lot. Private plane flew us back. We got back late at night in our house in Massachusetts, and no lights or anything because the lights were out because of the hurricane. So she looks at my bed, which is stripped. She said, "It's midnight and your bed is stripped. We're tired. and you're gonna have to make your own bed. So there I was, 12 years old, making my bed because I stripped it in the Mowgli fashion, but she was upset about it at midnight. And yeah, it's the last time I did that, by the way. I don't think I ever did it again. So it carried over. My point being, it carries over into your life, and that's, from my point of view at least, pretty doggone important. What that school, the open, as I like to call it, actually did to you. And there was some of the physical things that happened.
Now, as I recall, Colonel Elwell and his wife, Helen, I think she was his second wife, but um, they were elders in the Christian Science Church, correct?
Yes, I can't give you much more than that.
Yeah, and was Darwin Kingsley also?
No,
Okay.
not that I know of. He was not. Um, I didn't know Darwin specifically because I was a camper, just in terms of his being there. I never thought, well, that leads me into the whole subject of directors from 1953 all the way up to the present. You know, I never thought that he really had his feet on the ground. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I,
Well, I think, he only lasted a couple of years.
right. And he just, I guess you'd call it absent, maybe, as opposed to some of the others. John Adams, for example, was very present when the next guy was there. I worked under him as a counselor. Couldn't stand the man, but I thought he was pretty arrogant. But that's beside the point.
Uh-huh.
Uh, he was on hands-on. Adams was, but Kingsley was not. Don't have any other thing to say about him.
Yeah.
But as you say, it didn't last very long. I will say this: the camp is still open, and that's the big general theme of my life at that camp. So the camp is still open. I have to give my brother credit for that, not me, Joe. But at that particular point, by 1960-ish, it was pretty. Well, let's say it was. A lot of people thought that the land was pretty valuable, and boy, wouldn't we want to sell it for condos. At that point, we owned Paradise Point across from the waterfront. I guess they did finally sell that, and we owned Lone Wolf Island, right off of Blue Cove.
Yep.
We as counselors used to like to go over there with meeting the girls from Ottawa, but that's also another story. But anyway, we were able to, over that whole period of time of like 20 years, for one hook or another, we were able to, in fact, save the camp. And it is what it is today, which, by the way, is terrific. I'm so pleased the way Nick has handled it, bringing a modern kind of curriculum into it, but preserving a lot of the traditions. That's the end of the story, as opposed to the beginning of the story.
So your brother, I recall Bill. I interviewed Bill Hart Jr. a few years ago. He and I have been friends for a long time. Back in my days of politics, he was,
by the way, in my den.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Well, he talked a lot about the role that your brother played.
Yeah.
In sort of just egging everybody on.
Yes, my brother. I'm sure that it's been written in the how or that kind of stuff. But my brother graduated from college in 1959 at Amherst College. I also went to. Then he went off to Yale Law School, and in the summer of 1960, he joined me at camp as the waterfront director. He was in between Yale and college, and he knew nothing about waterfront or anything like that. He just wanted to take the summer off, which we did. We had a great time. Two brothers up there. I did the rifle range, and he did the waterfront, and we had a great time. At the end of that summer, 1960, however, the camp, it turned out he knew more about this than I did because he was more of a senior staff person than I was. Turned out the camp was in trouble financially. Uh, One thing led to another. He went to Yale Law School, and while he was in New Haven, he met up with a guy named Tyson Stokes. Tyson Stokes was a big deal in Mowglis. Between the two of them, that winter, from 60 to 61, they created this sort of this ongoing committee to figure out what the heck to do about it. And for 2 years, they would meet in New Haven, or up, he came back the next summer, again doing the waterfront thing, and finally became assistant director under Adams at that point. And they came up with the foundation that they have now.
Now, this is the famous story about the two of them riding the train
Yeah,
together and writing the documents on the
Yep.
back and
all
all.
of that, yeah. And the two of them came up with this plan, which of course in the end worked and still does. In effect, what happened was Adams sold the camp to the foundation, and Adams was out of there at that particular point.
Yeah.
So yes, if it wasn't for Joe initiating that way back in the fall of 1960, who knows what the place would look like today.
Right.
He's more important to the camp than I was, but it was nice. I did ask him to after he graduated from Amherst in the fall of 1959, because I was going to go back. I graduated from high school in 1960, and I wanted to go back, and so we went back together. It was kind of a nice thing to do in 1960, not knowing that we were going to have all this other stuff going on at the same time. But he's the guy that actually started that engine, and Tyson Stokes was the fellow who helped him out doing that.
Well, it really is a family legacy kind of thing
Sure,
when
yeah.
you think
I hope
about
he has a plaque someplace up there.
it.
He certainly
You need to
he
make
sent his
sure.
kids there, as you know. I sent my kids there.
Yeah.
His kids sent their kids there, as that list shows you. I mean, it's a lot of kids went to Mowgli after us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was, I don't think a lot people don't really think about how expensive it is to run a camp like this. I mean, that even today, Mowgli tuition only covers about 50 or 60% of the actual cost
Sure.
of
And
each book.
that leads me to another thing, another point that I made, but you're perfectly right. 19, kind of skip ahead now to 1981. My kids were at camp, and I was in between being a headmaster and going back to Fay School, actually, where I spent 9 years as the academic dean. But at that summer, I had a visit from Bob Bengston, Punderson, and Ed Lincoln. These are big names, as you may know.
Right, right.
And we sat out in my front lawn in lawn chairs. And Ed Lincoln says, I understand you're between jobs. And I said, well, I kind of am. He said, well, would you like to become director of Mowgli? And I said, oh, damn. talk about a dream job, right?
Right.
And so we started talking about that, right down to going to school up there, and whatever that private school is outside of Plymouth, north something with it. Anyway, and he said, well, you could do the same thing, we could spend the summers up there and have a job down here, and the same thing other guys were doing. I said, no, can't do that. Why? I said, for two reasons. Financially, I can't afford it. But the other is, Mowgli is not doing anything for like 40 weeks out of the year. This sits there. So you need to take the campus, as I call it, and do something with it all the time. Everything from having ski lodges or winterizing some of the cabins and winterizing jungle house and all that kind of stuff. And the director needs to be there 24/7 every day, all year round. Well, we can't afford that. The jungle house is shut up and went on and on like this, right? And so nothing came of it. The point I'm making is that's what they do now.
Right, right.
And so I guess it was a little bit early in 1981, but the point was that that's what they needed to do in order to, as you pointed out, in order to earn some money, frankly. When I was at Hoosac, the Winter Olympic Games was up in up there where the hockey team won years ago.
Yeah.
I forgot the name of it now. I was about 50 miles away from that spot up in upstate New York. Boy, did I open up my dormitories. Charged them an arm and a leg. So point being that there's ways in order to make money and still keep the institution going. I'm
Right.
glad they have winterized the jungle house. I'm glad that Nick lives up there, not in the jungle house, he has his own house. But point being that that whole process began, in my mind anyway, in 1981.
Hmm.
I never took the job, obviously, because I couldn't afford it. I kick myself to this day that I could have figured out how to do it. Again, you have to have a director that is able to do the business all the time.
Right.
And stuff like that.
And you got, and with a foundation or a board, you've got to have a way to make sure that you move the board at the same time.
Same time. I learned my lesson. Maybe that's why they wanted interest in me, because when you run a private school, like I did, it's exactly the same thing.
Sure.
Board of trustees and all that stuff. You have maintenance, you have food, everything's exactly the same.
Yeah.
So that's why I had no problems wanting the job, because I knew I could do it. And I think I would probably have done a good job, but it was 20 years too early from that point of view. But yes, the board was pretty decent. My Tyson Stokes, I think, stayed on it for quite a while until he died, I suspect. So it's really nice to see the board is taken hold and does a good job.
Now, what do you remember of your first few years as a kid at Mowgli?
As a kid,
Yeah.
well, actually, I was extremely homesick for the first couple of weeks, as with a lot of kids, I suppose. We had to write a letter once every Sunday, which I expect they probably still do,
Yes.
in order to get in to eat. We had to give them a letter home, which of course was, oh my God, come and get me, kind of letters. But then things changed. I got really interested into some of the activities, some of the industries, they called them in those days. I finally ended up in the inner circle and all that stuff. I lost weight. I love to hike. I hiked the rest of my life, thousands of miles and all various trails. So the kid turned into, in effect, by the time you graduated at age 14, which seems kind of early, but really not. Age 14 for males, I think, is a very watershed type age.
Yeah.
You get confidence in yourself. You get expertise in the things that you like to do and some of the things you have to do, all of which subtly or expressly was presented to us. And sometimes we didn't want to do some things, but it didn't matter. You just did them because you had to, and no one said no, or come back tomorrow. I said, no, you got to do this now. So it's that kind of thing where they in effect, like in the military, I suppose. Not that it sounded like that at the time. So yeah, I was, over the course of the 4 years, it made who I was, literally.
Yeah, I've always said that there were few things that happened to me in my life um, that were more critical to me developing self-confidence than learning to build a fire in the rain.
Right. But the mere fact you ended up doing it, right? In the rain, by the way.
Right.
Yeah, was that the green ribbon, I think?
Yep.
Yeah, I can't remember. I had ended up with let's see, ended up with I think 5 ribbons. In no necessary order. I think my first one was silver, which was boating,
Hmm.
red, which was canoeing,
Yeah.
green, which was camping, brown, which was hiking, red, white, and blue, which was the rifling, which is the hardest ribbon to get, as far as I
Yeah.
was concerned.
Right. That's right.
Um, but I did. The brown is the one we had to hike, what, 50 miles or 100 miles or whatever
Yeah.
it was.
It was 100 miles. At least
Yeah,
when I was there.
yeah. So, anyways, so I ended up with five, I guess, 5 ribbons.
But red, white,
Put,
and
put
blue
that
is
on my hat.
red, white, and blue is quite an accomplishment. As I recall, Phil Hart was, of course, in charge of the rifle range for many of those years, and he would make a huge ceremony of
But he would.
some
Yeah.
red, white, and blue ribbon. I
I
mean, there.
remember Phil Hart when he was in he was in Cubs. Little blonde haired kid wandering around. Yeah, well, rifle range was where I grew as a person, I think, and it stayed with me my entire life. I still like shooting, uh,
um,
but I was 18. John Adams was the director, and it was illegal actually for me to be in charge of the rifle range because I wasn't 21. New Hampshire dictates you're supposed to be 21, but no one bothered to tell New Hampshire, I don't think. But it was the first time that, well, it wasn't the first time, but I mean, it was a way in which the rifle range is laid out in terms of the structure, the mats, and the rifles, and all that stuff was terrific.
yeah,
It's really not easy to shoot somebody.
right.
Although I did have one kid discharge his rifle at me and it went past my shoulder like this. Kid from Texas, he showed up with a Marlin 22, was the first one of the first plastic rifles, uh,
Huh.
semi-automatic. His father had given them to use it, and his father told me he's a Texan. He needs to learn how to shoot, that kind of thing. And I said, "Well, we have our own rifles." He said, "No, no, I want him to use this one." Well, anyway, it turned out there's more bullets in it than I remembered. That was the only time. Hit the floor on that one. Didn't let him use that gun again, I'll tell you. But the rifle range did allow us to teach kids the responsibility of something like a weapon and,
Right.
and a
Right.
tool. Very important, I thought, and they did respect it. And when I went back a few years back and watched them, the woman was the rifle instructor at the time. Did the same thing, had the exact same rules and all that. It was terrific. It could have been me doing that, standing there putting.
Yeah.
So the rifle range, I really liked it. I had a good time doing that. We had a cannon, which you may remember, up in the up in Gray Field. This cannon was old as heck. It was really old, and we had a tradition way back then of firing the cannon for every year the camp was in existence. Well, and by 1960, we're talking over 50 rounds. Everybody had to stand around while I pulled the lanyard and boom across the lake. So I had boxes of water, and I would have to throw it at the barrel every once in a while because it got too hot. Well, I finally went to one of the, I don't remember what it was probably Adams, said, "You need to get a new cannon. Cannon's so old, it's going to blow up one of these days."
Yeah.
Oh, well, we can't do that. Where would you find a cannon anyway? And that was the end of that. I do remember that someone told me later on they actually got a new cannon.
Yeah, over the years, I think they've replaced that cannon, oh, two or three times anyway.
Really? Yeah,
I know.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it needed it. Do you still do the cannons?
yeah, they still, as far as I know, they still do.
Yeah, that's
I,
terrific.
I don't know that they fire at one time for each year.
Anymore, right? Well, it took a while, as you can imagine.
Right,
Everybody's standing around, right?
right.
But anyway, that was good. I did enjoy the cannon, but needed to be a new one. I'm glad to hear that they actually got a new cannon.
Yeah. So you were in charge of the rifle range
Yeah, for 3 years.
for
Right,
3 years.
right.
Huh.
Um, we actually had a rifle team. We would compete with other camps by mail.
Yeah.
I would send the targets off to. There's a photograph someplace of. I wish I remember these kids' names. I can't remember them unfortunately, but there was about five of them, I guess, and I have pictures of them standing by the backstop and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
We sent them off the mail in these other camps, and the competition all summer long. It was great.
I'm pretty sure that they still continue to do that. That
Oh,
there's,
I hope so. Yeah,
although there's a sort of a shrinking number of camps that offer riflery as,
really, that's too bad. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, even schools. I was one had one school, a faith school, that had a rifle range in it. Believe it or not, there was a faith school is a middle school, stops at grade 9. Who knew it could be a rifle range there? Been there
Right.
forever. Not there anymore, of course, but it was it's a good thing. I was a shotgun NRA shotgun instructor. There we go, instructor for years. I'd take these kids out, kids and men actually, and certify them so they could go hunt, that kind of stuff. Did that for a long, long, long time. Till I got
Well,
mad.
now
Got
tell
ma-
us about George Gibbs's gun show.
Oh yeah, every year he did this. Um, since and later on, being the I don't know when he retired, but it was I think anyway, we would all show up with this back 40 at his home.
Yeah.
And he had various stands out there that had things in it, from everywhere from watermelons to God knows what else. He had a whole rack of different kinds of guns. There would be the shotguns and the 30-30s and those kinds of things, okay? All rifles. And he would say, this is what happens if you shoot with this particular gun at, say, a watermelon or cantaloupe or whatever you target, or glass jars and so on and so forth. And of course, the thing just disappeared when he shot one of these things. Very impressive. I mean, I was like, whoa, this is cool. First of all, I thought it was cool. And then it occurred to me that the American people, or just people in general, haven't a clue what happens if you actually shoot something.
Right.
And that was the lesson that he was trying to give, actually, very effective, to the point where I use it all the time throughout my professional career. For
Right.
example, I ran a school outside of Philadelphia called Church Farm School. And all these are all kids from the inner city of Philadelphia, boarding school. And we used to have these fire drills and all end up out in the field. At that point, I was a volunteer fireman, and you kind of scrape the, as I call them, Christy critters, unfortunately, out of the ashes if there was a fatality. So it occurred to me that one day, since these kids are in inner city Philadelphia, that they had pretty much had gun violence already in their lives, that I'd pull one of these demonstrations. So I pulled out my 12 gauge and put the obvious targets out there while we're out there for a fire drill. And I said, okay, here's what happens if someone gets hit with a shotgun, and proceeded to do the same thing. This is way back in the 1990s now. Boy, I'll tell you, oh my goodness gracious, they were really impressed. Whether that taught them anything, I don't know. But the only experience these people have is the movies, where, you know, in the old days, the 1950s and so in the movies, if you got shot, nothing happened. You kind of fell off your horse. Nowadays, a little bit different than that, I guess. But yeah, I thought that those demonstrations was really important, both in terms of the power of a firearm, the results of a firearm, and how to take care of one, which is, of course, what we're talking about. Yeah, I still do. That's the thing. It was really
Well, George definitely instilled a great deal of respect into the process.
yes, he did.
Um,
I don't know where it started or how long he did it. I had nothing to do with it other than being the observer of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, he was a great guy anyway. So yeah,
right. And I'll tell you a story that my friend Jim West was my counselor at Mowgli. He was the son of Wapanaya. He and his brother Rick. Rick, you may have known. Rick graduated in '57.
okay, I probably
He
did.
was only at Mowgli for 1 year.
Oh, and
But Jim,
didn't know him. I graduated in 56.
yeah, okay. So anyway, Jim was the archery instructor, needless to say.
Yeah, right. I guess
At
so.
Mowgli. But George, at one of the at the first gun show that Jim went to, um, George had Jim participate in a demonstration, and he said to everybody, he said, "Now we're gonna. I don't know what the caliber was of the rifle, but he said we're gonna take this bucket of sand.
Mhm.
We're gonna shoot around into that bucket." And so they did, and George went over to the bucket afterwards and sort of dug through and
Sure.
pulled the bullet out.
Yeah.
And it had only gone, maybe halfway into the.
Right. Right.
He said to Jim, "Now, Jim, I want you to take that 40-pound bow, and
Yeah.
I want you to shoot at that same bucket."
Yeah.
And Jim said it went through one side, all the sand, and
Yeah.
out the other side.
Right.
And
Yeah. Those we could talk about bows and arrows too. Could I ask a question? Could we pause for a second? Okay, I'm back.
okay.
Did I let me ask you a question. Was there a ribbon for axemanship?
Yes, the orange ribbon.
Okay, I got that one too. Reason I bring that up, because that was a Colonel Elwell story.
Oh,
And Mowgli still owns land across the road.
yeah.
And we would meet at the well, where the woodcraft shop is now. Underneath that was a big, huge sharpening wheel.
Yeah.
I don't know if they use that anymore. We had to learn how to sharpen axes by this huge wheel. Which
Right.
Anyway, then we'd walk out across the road, then up the mountain a bit, and he taught us how to use an axe. And to this day, every time I see someone using an axe, I said, "Good luck." You take your foot off, because they have no clue. And there was a procedure, which I'm sure every Maui kid who ever used an axe has learned, including, let's see, including Eric, who was the last one up there a few years back. He's my brother's daughter's son, Eric. And he's proud of the fact he said, Uncle Jim, you have to see how I use an axe. Just a couple of years back, he lived out in California. Okay, so out we go, and he's doing exactly the same thing. I thought that was terrific. I said, Eric, how did you learn that? Oh, that's what they teach at Mowglis. And I said, well, good for you. You know, it's like a dance in order to keep your feet from getting, getting hit. And Colonel Elwell taught us that. And he said, this is what happens if you don't do what I teach you how to do. And he gave us many demonstrations, not using his own leg. But so as far as I know, in all my time there at Mowgli, no one ever had an accident except once, and that was down the wood pile by the service road that goes past the lodge, and there's a big I think that's where the cook lives and stuff like that. Yeah. Anyway, there was a big wood pile there that's where they used to get the wood for the campfires. Well, I was down there one day, and somebody was chopping the wood up, and hit his leg, and just right to the bone. It was very dramatic. So okay, off we go to the lodge, and it wasn't bleeding at all. Anyway, so they sewed it all up and sent him back out. That's the only accident I can remember of an axe, and it was Colonel Elwell who taught us how to do that. Still, same method, and I think that's terrific.
You know, it's funny. Now that you mention this, probably more often than any other recollection that that people have and I've done more than 100 of these interviews, is the skill that they developed with an axe.
Rightly so.
Both
I would say the skill for everything. I mean, not just. I mean, hell, I know how to light a lantern. You know, I know how to clean a chimney in a lantern. Things like that.
Right.
Now, maybe a skill we don't need anymore, to be sure. But how many times have we up there in our hands and knees cleaning the chimneys of the lanterns we had, which, by the way, was not electric. And so I guess they have electricity now. I suspect they don't have lanterns
anymore. I think it's a safety requirement.
You can't burn the place down. Right?
No open flames anymore.
Right. See, there you go. Damn state. Can't do anything, you know?
Yeah, I know.
Oh well, I mean, it wasn't the best thing. It wasn't the best duty, but it certainly was a duty.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, washing dishes. Hell, we had to learn how to wash dishes, stuff like that, and all sorts of things that we had to do that nowadays is either passe or they don't do anymore. So.
Now, grounds and barrels, did they have a?
Oh yeah. They had well, you carried them along like a Chinese thing,
right.
things of both sides, and two kids would carry them, one going backwards and one going forwards.
Right.
Yeah, we had those. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what they do now, but
I don't either. We had this the duty board in front of Colonel Elwell's apartment. They had a big, huge duty board with all our names on it, with sliding wooden pegs, and they kept sliding them. So you had a different duty, not every day, but every couple of days, they'd slide it into something else, and then you had to go look at it and see what you had to do for that particular day. It might be doing anything, like as you say, emptying the trash, doing dishes, or whatever it may have been. Yeah.
okay. Now I'm trying to rack my brain to remember if the Beckford family was of the red crew or the blue crew,
Red.
or as I recall, it was red.
Not red.
Yeah.
Red came from me, and the second or third day I was there, I was asked whether I wanted to be blue or red because I didn't have any history. At that point, red was a color I liked, so I said, "Oh, I want to be red." And from that day on, right to the present day, red it is, and still is red.
Yeah, and most of the time it runs in the family. I mean, there's, if your father was red, you're red, and
Right.
Every once in a while, uh, Bill Hart and Phil Hart had some fun and mixed it up a little bit.
Oh, no, they did?
Yeah, as I recall, there were Foyer boys who were. You had Robert Foyer was Blue Crew and Jonathan Foyer was Red Crew, and they were
Oh
brothers.
dear. That wouldn't fly in my house. No, we're still red.
Yeah,
Yeah. The crew is it's another institution I thought was terrific. I loved it. I really did. I thought that crew boats are terrific, still do. Um, all our family rode. Most of them got to be the racing crew. Um, and the most part, I think they won. Oh, I think Randy was in the racing crew and he won. I remember that. Eric was in the racing crew and the big guy and he won. I was in the racing crew, and the day before I was supposed to race, I got bumped down to first form. I had blisters on my hands, and I was stroke. And I guess the guy decided that I wasn't going to be able to do this, so down I went. To this day, I'm a little irritated about that, but that's okay. Yeah, the racing crew was great. Those boats are something else, and still are. So, so
and what about
here's a story for you. One Parents' Day, and I'm thinking it's like 1955, around there, 54, 55. Parents show up, and all the cars were parked up at the ball field. Then everybody walked down to the waterfront where they had the sports, right? Well, about 4 o'clock, the thunderstorm comes over the mountain. I mean, it is a thunderstorm, black clouds and all that coming across the lake. Of course, everybody gets out of the water and all that stuff. And we're all standing around, all the parents are standing around the little swim cottage place, where they had a porch on it. And suddenly a lightning hits a car. There was a clock at the very top of car, right where the peak is.
yeah, yeah.
Pretty good sized clock. I don't know if it's still there or not, but it must be a new one because it just disintegrated. It just boom, and this clock pieces all over the place descended on us and crashed into the lake. Didn't set the car on fire, but it was pretty well. You used to see seen those parents run. I mean, they just disappeared into the woods, all back to their cars, coming down like crazy, just pouring rain. Uh, next bolt of lightning hit one of the sailboats, the mast of one of the sailboats. This destroyed the whole boat. This is unbelievable power of lightning. It was only about 50 feet from the rocks. So that was when whoever the waterfront director was at the time, it's decided, okay, boys, everybody into the boathouse. So we all crowded into the boathouse where the crew boats are now. That's reminded me of it. Well, all the parents disappeared. God knows where they went, but probably back to the ball field. But yeah, I keep thinking that every time I have a thunderstorm, I keep thinking of that bolt, the clock. It was pretty impressive. That was Parents' Weekend in 1954.
Do you remember a particular trip that had where there was either an event or memory of?
Oh, sure. The worst trip was one that I took as a camper on Mount Chicarawa. I don't know if you ever climbed Mount Chicarawa, but the tree line stops pretty far down.
Yeah.
And this one I might have been in Panther at the time, but I was still rather pudgy. And so up at hotter than heck. We had our sandwiches were in a paper bag around our belts. And I guess we had a canteen. But up we go. Well, I'm not doing very well. And so the counselor, whoever he was, decides to leave me behind with another young counselor. So there we are, both of us. Everybody else disappears up the trail. And so he says, well, let's go. And of course, me, I'm not interested in going anywhere except back, that kind of thing. And so off I go. Well, next thing I know, I'm here feeling this thing in the back of my back. Turns out to be a machete. And he's pushing me up this mountain with a machete in my back. And I'm kind of, what do I do? He says, let's keep going. Let's get going. We're not going to stop now. Don't stop now. I got this machete back here. And we didn't stop. Finally got back up to the top of Chicago. I have a picture actually of the group. Uh, and they'd eaten my lunch. Didn't have any lunch, which is probably just as well. But that was the worst hike. And unfortunately for us, it had been early because it was Darwin Kingsley. That night, we had our parade with the flags and the colors. And in those days, they passed out, it was trip day, they passed out candy to those people who excelled themselves, I guess. Well, he decided that I'd excelled myself by getting up there in the first place. So he gave me a candy bar after all that. In hindsight, I said to myself, now at the time, I loved the candy bar, but in hindsight, I said, oh, what a great reward for some fat kid trying to get out of a mountain.
Yeah.
And I wasn't happy about the machete either. And somebody I don't know where it is now, but I had a picture of all of us, top Chicago, with our shirts off, and me sitting there. I actually made it. I should send that to Mowgli, I suppose, as an example. So that was the worst trip. One of the better trips was one that Colonel Elwell almost led. This was into the Pemi, where Franconia Brook is. I saw the Kangamangas Highway. There's an entrance goes in there, the railroad track. You may know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Franconia Falls.
And yeah, it's I expect the rails and the wood ties are probably gone by now, but in those days they were not. And
Right.
really tough walking along those things.
Yeah.
Well, when we got to Franconia Brook Shelter, there was a bridge, an old railroad bridge that went over. Now all they are there is stone bastions. That's all they have now. But in those days, there was a railroad bridge that you could walk across. Except at this particular time, the river was quite high, and the bridge, they decided they couldn't use it. They were afraid it was too fragile.
Yeah.
So, got to get across this river, right? Colonel Elwell is standing there, and he says, well, one of you counselors, get a rope, put it around your waist, and get across the river. So, guy, he put the line, gets the rope, gets into the water, and of course, he's swept away almost immediately. But he manages to get across the river downstream, but he finally gets across the river, comes back opposite to us, ties the rope to a tree. Whereupon they tie the other end to another tree, and Colonel Elwell says, okay, boys, let's go. So here we are. Oh, there's another thing. We had horseshoe packs. You remember what horseshoe packs were?
No.
No, obviously not. Horseshoe packs, again, a World War I thing, I'm pretty sure. You took your blanket and you rolled it up lengthwise. And what you put inside the rolls was all your clothes and all your utensils and everything that was personal to you.
Huh.
Then you took rope and used it like a sausage. You had a few pieces tied up, right? So then you took that and put it around your neck. So it was a horseshoe of your blanket and all your personal stuff inside.
Mm-hmm.
Called horseshoe packs.
Huh.
Hotter than hell because they're all wool blankets.
Right.
So that's how we didn't have, we had pack boards later on, but at that particular point, it was just these horseshoe packs, which I didn't know any difference. So what the heck? So anyway, now we have these horseshoe packs around our necks, right? And Colonel Elwell is telling us to grab the rope, pull ourselves across the Pemi, which is in spring flood, basically. It was quite high.
Yeah.
And so we're kind of looking at each other. Huh, I don't know. Geez. Hey, this is Mowgli, right? So what do we know? So we're hanging on, like this, and we're pulling our horseshoe past. We get wet immediately, and makes it even heavier. We all finally make it. How the hell we all made it is beyond me, without killing somebody in the process. But we did. There's another time with Colonel Elwell. He, by the way, didn't do it. He stayed on the other side. He said, I got to get back to camp. Anyway, there was another time, same place actually. Again, he shows up unannounced. And this is right after supper. And it's getting dark, but he shows up. And the Franconia Brook shelter is about maybe 7 miles in. It's not very far. Now it's loved to death by tourists, but in those days there wasn't anybody there. He shows up with a big tank of ice cream. I mean, one of those big things of ice cream,
Yeah.
which was getting a little melty.
Yeah.
And he said, "All right, boys, line up. I got some ice cream. Get your tin cups." That was our eating, a tin cup and a spoon.
Right.
And so we all line up, and he's going like this, putting the ice cream in each one of our cups as we go through. He gets to me, and he drops the ice cream onto the ground, so it rolls down on the ground. So I'm saying to myself, "Huh." My ice cream's on the ground. I'm looking at. He says, "Well, hurry up, pick it up. It's not going to before it melts." So I had to reach down, pick up the ice cream, put it in my cup, pull out the pine needles, go eat it. I couldn't believe it. And so I guess that's what you do when you're in the military. Move it along, move it along. He was a great guy. While he was still doing all that, when he had to be in his 60s by that point, I'm sure. But he was kept up just like the rest of us. Yeah. One time he called me in. He had a porch in the back of where his little cottage place there, and a porch where he used to sit and rock and watch the camp. And pulled me in one day, and we had a nice conversation having to do with what I've been talking about. Obviously, he thought that I needed some extra help. And so that was nice. I remember that. Yeah. Anyway,
Huh.
Colonel Elwell stories.
Yeah. So, uh, other staff that you particularly remember, do you remember Mickey Smith?
I do.
I think he was the trip master for
Yeah, I think so
number.
too. Yeah. I have some trouble thinking of remembering the staff people. Ed Lincoln, I remember, of course.
Ed Lincoln. He
Uh,
was a really great guy.
oh, he was. Yeah.
I just talked to his son Dan a few days ago. Yeah,
Well, here's one for it. Charlie Walbridge.
Charlie Walbridge.
he, he, Great guy, by the way. He really is. He still does things on Facebook and stuff like that. He does
Yeah,
this water kayaking stuff. Anyway, Charlie was there when I was a counselor, and he was kind of awkward. Big guy.
yeah.
He is. And I'll never forget. He was a really great guy, but I remember it used to drive me nuts because he was what I call a swinger of birches. And swinger of birches are those kids as they come down a mountain, use the trees to keep on coming. And they tend to bend and that kind of stuff. And if you do it right, you don't have to, you skip a few rocks that you might trip on coming down a mountain. He loved doing that. The swinger of birches. Well, he wasn't very good at it, unfortunately. He was a big guy, and every once in a while he'd hang on to one of these trees, which tended to be young birch saplings, and it would snap. And I thought, sure, that one of these days he's going to kill himself. I said, Charlie, don't do that. You can't do that. You're going to kill you. Oh, no, this is so much fun. And do it. Keep on doing it. Draw me nuts. That's how I remember Charlie Wilbridge as being a swinger of birches. There was it's really hard. Bill Hart, Jr. and Phil, his brother, um, were campers when I was a camper, and Bill Hart and I were in the same den. As I say, we palled around a lot together. And we used to have a talent night with Ray Brothers once a year where we dressed up and did something entertaining. And I remember he and I used to get together. I don't remember what we did, but we'd get together and do something. So yeah, he was a good guy.
Now this is Bill Jr.
Yeah, yes, yes.
And he was in your den?
Yeah, was 56. Phil was younger by a few years. I remember him first in Cubs, right. Then he became a Bellew. Bellew at that point was the first year of the pack.
Yeah, I've been trying to get Phil Hart to do an interview with me, but he finds it quite amusing to avoid my calls.
Well, it's nice that you do these kinds of things. Those of us who are dying off. And the whole business of remembering what it was like, we're talking like, what, 70 something years ago.
Right.
I mean, this is kind of a long time ago,
Yeah.
And again, it's so nice to go back. I haven't been back in a couple of years, but Nick is great. He invites me back, or I ask if I can come. And he goes, sure, come ahead, but I can't do the walking anymore. And so it's kind of difficult to get around. Last time I offered a golf cart, but I might or may not take him up on it. But it's a little like a mixed memory, because you remember literally running up the jungle house, to get eat
Sure.
and all that stuff. And I look at it now, and holy shit, I can't do that anymore. But the rest of it is just the same. And
Yeah.
that's what's so great about it. It's physically just the same for the most part.
Yeah.
And so even though we don't do the wool uniforms anymore, and all that kind of stuff, and they don't cut their hair anymore, and there's girls, which is something I'm personally not happy about.
There, yeah.
But that aside, it's great that they have the very new industries, for example, they have up there.
Yeah.
But it's also nice to know that they still do the stuff that I remember, and I guess you
Yeah.
too.
Okay, here we go. We're going to play a new game. It's called I'll tell you a place or a word, and you give me your reaction.
Okay.
The Mowgli Chapel.
Oh, wonderful place. Just gorgeous. It's not denominational, and it shouldn't be. I call it cathedral-like. And Jerry Hakes at that point was the organist. And he was also director of Cubs at the time. Still alive, by the way. I don't know if you contact.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just that place where you go every Sunday, and you were pretty much required, obviously, to go, but that's not the point. The point was it was just so soothing and so I don't know, I suppose spiritual is a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And that's, as I said before, where I plan to end up.
Yeah. Count off.
Hmm?
Count off. Did you have count offs when you were? How do they keep track of you when you were hiking? Did they you count?
But I guess you're probably right. I don't remember that specifically, but yeah, probably
Okay.
we did. I know we had, in terms of soak, we had these little tags we had to put on our, hooks to go into the water. And I think you had to have a buddy in the water at the same time.
Did you have skinny dipping?
Oh, yes, we definitely had skinny dipping. Skinny dipping was a big deal. And that usually happened after supper when it was really hot. And somebody decided that we're not going to have a have a campfire tonight. We're all going to have skinny dip. Well, that was terrific. Who wants to sit next to a fire that's 90 degrees out, right? So off you'd probably taking your clothes off, running down to the waterfront. Oh yeah, yeah. We thought that was pretty cool. Well, on the way, figured that out, or someone called them up. I don't know which, but inevitably there'd be a canoe out by the raft with on the way counselors. The us staff members thought that was pretty cool too. Didn't care. We were still skinny dipped, but sometimes we had an audience.
Yeah.
In terms of that. Yeah, on the way was a big deal. I don't know if this is a part of our conversation or not, but as a staff member, we did a lot of canoeing back and forth to Onaway. The big rock, you may know that, a huge rock on Onaway, where we'd meet these girls and then put them in the canoe, and we'd canoe back to Lone Wolf Island, where somebody had figured out how to get some refreshments. And then we'd have a great old time, and then we'd canoe back to Onaway, and we did a lot of canoeing in those days. Girls didn't mind.
Yeah. Did you have lone wolf meetings in the den?
We did, yeah. We sometimes we'd have lone wolf meetings at Lone Wolf.
Really?
We'd actually trap over there, get in the canoes, and somebody gotten hamburgers and stuff like that, and we'd have a nice evening over there. Yeah, we didn't do it often, but I remember we did it a few times. Sure. Den and I was small. I think there was only about maybe 12 of us.
Yeah.
It was really small. I loved Den. I thought it was a great place. I really did. Later on, when I was a counselor, we put a little extension on the end of it, which I think is still there. That's where, when they had a new program for junior counselors, they put them out there. They were a year or two older than we were. Anyway, yeah, Lone Wolf was fun.
Was Chef Smith around?
Yes, he was. Yep, yep.
Smithy.
Yeah, they were. Well, let's put it this way: you did whatever he asked you to do. No one argued with the cook. That was not going to happen, no matter what it might have been. And he was a damn good cook. I got to tell you, the food was terrific. At least I liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. And usually they had enough. Usually there was seconds and stuff like that you could go back for. And we were required to have milk. We had to drink at least one glass of milk, one glass of water, salt filled, it was hot out, and whatever came to the table. Wife would call it a no thank you helping. But it was good food. Mm-hmm.
Myron Braley.
No,
Do you remember Myron?
not doing anything to me.
Okay, you were talking about that big wheel for sharpening the axes.
Yeah.
Myron was the maintenance guy at Mowglis.
Oh, okay. All right.
And usually my encounters with Myron involved standing there while he sharpened axes on that limestone.
Okay, well, we had to sharpen our own. We were told it was a huge wheel. I mean, it was a good sized wheel.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I can't remember if somebody went around like this or we had our feet. I don't remember which now.
Oh, I think he operated it by his foot power.
Yeah, okay, well, that's probably what we did too.
Yeah.
And then there was somebody else who had to drip water on it, that kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
Out of a can, dripping water. No,
I think by the time I was taking axemanship, we were just using files to sharpen.
Well, another thing that Colonel Elwell taught me is how to sharpen an axe, not to mention a knife.
Right.
Same thing. Yeah, it was an experience, and as I said, my life still does. Obviously, it covered my family and everybody that comes in contact. A wonderful place. I can't think of any place else that even comes close to what that camp does. definitely the school of the open in all ways.
Did you do trail clearing?
Oh, we did, yes, geez. We were, every once in a while, a Thursday trip day would be trail clearing day. And we were issued a hatchet and a block of wood. And we'd get to the trail, and our job was to cut off with a block of wood little springy things that came up in the trail, you know, little runners from something or other.
Yeah.
And once we got through our little spot, we had to go to the front and get another spot and keep on going until we got to the end of the trail or wherever it is we were supposed to be doing that. And we did it all day. Of course, we didn't get there till 10 and probably had to leave at 3, but at least, yes, we did trail.
Sure.
Which reminds me, after I was not doing the counseling thing, I used to go back every year anyway and do a lot of hiking in that area with my sons. For example, when they got to be 8, up to Cardigan we went, all 3 of them, stuff like that. And I did remember the last time I was up the Holt Trail, which is, I don't know which son it was, one of them, probably the youngest one. Anyway, I had a black lab with me at the time, and I'm going on about how you gotta get up the whole trail, and this is going to make you a man, and all that stuff. And my poor dog decided he didn't want to become a man because he was having difficulty climbing up the steep rocks, as you may remember, right? So many times I had to push him for the rear end. I pushed the dog up to the next level. But Tommy got there, just rained at the top of Cardigan. There were these little depressions where the water had pooled. And then we came down fire screw and came back to the the cabins down below. Well, he thought that water was terrific. He was rolling it and lap it up and stuff like that. So yes, I would take the kids up there even after I wasn't actually a counselor.
Sure. Soup Bowl Glide.
Soup Bowl Glide, wonderful place. We probably ripped our balls off a few times, but it was a wonderful place. And it was on private property. And I guess you can't go there anymore, but I'm told. But we would go there. Of course, we were always naked. There was never really bad bathing suit or anything.
Right, right.
And we'd slide down there into that pool all afternoon. It was terrific.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, as I recall, back in the days when it was not politically incorrect to do so, we would soap our butts up with soap.
Yeah, yeah.
Before we went down.
Okay. I remember that, but I wouldn't be surprised.
A little slicker.
Yeah, yeah. No, it was probably from my perspective now as an old man, probably not that big, but as a kid, it was just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I remember the long walk into it. There was right next to there was a fences and fields, so we had to walk along what turned out to be sort of like a wood road until we got to this place. But boy, that's a long time ago. So.
Well, Jim, looking back on this, 60, 70 years later, what's your assessment about the impact that Mowgli had on the person that you would become?
I can't imagine not having gone there. Of course, if I didn't know about it, I suppose that's a different story. Never realized as a camper the importance of end result, both in terms of what we did physically, what was expected of us, all with, by the way, honor, all being positive. I never had a negative experience. No one, would ever said that I was fat and a piece of shit kind of thing. They're all very positive, but you did what they wanted you to do. It wasn't really a discussion. I found that it built character, both as a counselor, which by the way is another story in of itself, I suppose, just being a counselor there. But as a kid, especially if you go there for more than a year, or go for there for the whole summer. I don't like the idea of people going there for half a summer. I don't think that's good, but that's what you do, I guess, if you run something like that. That would be something I would probably vote against if I had a vote. Why? Because it takes a while to develop this kind of thing in a person. Not just 1 year, not just a half a summer, but a few summers. Yes, it's expensive. And I honor my parents who sent me there and continue to send me there. And that's why our kids, everybody else's kids in my family went there. Exact same reason.
Yeah.
So when you have these challenges in life, which we all do I think about Mowgli in terms of answering whatever that challenge might be? Well, yeah, sometimes I actually do, especially when I was running schools, dealing with kids. But that's just me because I dealt with kids my entire life. Um, would I be a different person if I hadn't gone? Don't know. Probably not. Not in the same way. Not in respecting nature. Not in respecting other people. Not being feeling a little self-reliant of doing stuff like axemanship, that kind of thing. Being able to go and appreciate the hike and the wilderness and so forth and so on. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd love to do
Well, Jim Beckford, what an honor it has been to chat with
that.
somebody.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being somebody who actually is interested in hearing about some of this stuff.
I mean, you were there at the critical times of Mowgli's history.
I
So
was.
really, I think graced us not only with your presence, but with the present of being able to sort of bring us all back to those days.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Well, it was the days remember in old age. I got to tell you, I do. This was a wonderful experience. It
Yeah.
was. And thank you for asking.
Well, good hunting, my brother.
You too. Good. Thank you so much, Wayne.
You take care.
Yeah. Bye bye.